In this video, I'll give you a brief explanation of what Archon is, and I'll also show the differences between the old version and the new version. So, Archon is basically the Mac version of SparkEdit, which is used for editing Halo Combat Evolved map files. So on the screen you can see a picture of SparkEdit, and here is the old version of Archon. So it's pretty similar. It allows you to move objects around the map, so I can select things, drag them around, etc. It's got vehicles, scenery, it shows a blurry version of the terrain, and it's got all the items and everything. And you can duplicate scenery to add more if you would like. So I'll open up one of the campaigns, so B30. And you can see it takes a pretty heavy performance hit, so there's no occlusion, culling or anything, but it renders everything, and there's also some issues with the trees. So the new version uses OpenGL shaders and vertex buffer objects, so it's a lot faster, and it's also got a new interface. So here is the new version of Archon. So you can see there are detailed textures on the terrain. Objects look nicer, there's light maps, we have a sky now. So like the old version, we can also move things around. There's a lot more options as to what you can duplicate now. So you can duplicate player spawns, which you can see here, actually show a player instead of a coloured square. So I can move this tree around if I want to. It also shows the collision model, which is useful. So if I hold shift, I can duplicate that. And we have vehicles. You'll see that now some of the shaders with glass look a lot nicer than before. So you may think this also has a pretty big performance hit because it looks a lot nicer. So if I go back to B30, which is down here, you'll see that performance is actually better. Even though we're rendering a lot more, you'll see we have also got water reflections. So we're getting about 30 frames per second or 40 frames per second with water reflections. Halo does not do water reflections because it takes such a big performance hit. This also doesn't use any occlusion culling like the old version, but the raw vertex power is a lot higher, so it can render more. So if I lower the detail to medium and turn off water reflections, you'll see that we hit the full 60 frames per second. Unlike the old version, we can also show all the objects and all the terrains at the same time. So here we have another example of a map. So we're at the full 60 frames per second, and you can see that only one of the terrains or BSPs are showing at pretty high detail. So when you move over to the next terrain, Halo would switch the BSPs and show the next one. So a cool feature in the new Archon is that you can show them all at once. And I'm still getting a reasonable 30 frames per second. This is with full light maps, texture maps, and shaders and everything. So I'll go back to Blood Gulch map, and I will now show you the new paint tool, which was added in Archon. So I can paint dirt, grass, light maps, or I can change the colour with the eyedropper. So let's go to a light map. So light maps in Halo are basically the shadows. So Archon can't re-render all the light maps, but it allows you to modify their colours manually. So if I thought this shadow was a bit too much, then I could say paint over that. While generally this tool wouldn't be used for painting shadows, it would be useful for caves such as this. So I could change the colour to, say, yellow. Paint on the walls. So I'll now show you the painting on grass, so the terrain. So we can go to the paint tool again, we select dirt. With this, there's also the opacity control. So So let's set that to 1 to make it a very slight. Go to the eyedropper and select whatever color is there, and we'll go back to dirt. So Archon lets you transition between the grass and dirt very easily. So you'll see here that it's not dirt and then instantly grass, there is a slight transition. So we can also do that in Archon, and that didn't work because the opacity has gone back. So you'll see the slight transition there. Another interesting feature is that you can swap entities. So this tree here, for example, is a scenery object and its entity is this tree. So if we select it, you'll see we have a drop down here with some more objects. So we could change it to a boulder and it changes to a boulder. So then we can duplicate that and add more boulders if we wish. This is useful if you add in new types of entities using another program and you want to add them to your map. One incredibly powerful feature in Archon is the ability to copy and paste entities across maps. Internally, this is very complicated because the map is essentially compiled so that you can't modify things, and also so it's the fastest it can be in the Halo engine. So I'll go back to B30. And I'll go to one of these trees. So I like the look of this tree, so I can select it. I can go edit copy. And then edit paste. This feature hasn't been updated for the new renderer, but once you save it, it will have the proper bitmaps in the file. There are lots of hidden features in Archon which haven't been enabled, such as first person mode, where you go into the actual height of the character, and they'll be enabled in future. Another thing that you might have noticed is the game type option on the right. So currently you can see all the player spawns and all the vehicles. So we can change what is displayed by changing that option. So let's say capture the flag. Only those player spawns would be used. And this line here represents a teleporter. So these players over here are red, representing the red spawn, and if we go over to the other base, you'll notice they are blue. So now that we've finished modifying this map, we can save it and then view it in Halo.
Capture the flag.
So you'll see over here that we now have the tree and the rock.